Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Mai asakta mana partha. Yoga yunjam marashraya. Asamasayam samagrammam. Yata janasasitatshinu. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Lord said, Mai, to me, asakta manaha, mind attached, partha, O son of Pritha, yogam, self-realization, yunjam, practicing, mad ashrayaha, in consciousness of me, Krishna consciousness, asamsayam, without doubt, samagram, completely, mam, me, yata, how, janasi, you can know, tat, that, shrinu, try to hear. Remember that part. This is going to be interactive. I will ask you some questions during this, so pay attention, because there will be intermittent tests on this. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now, hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Now repeat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In this 7th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. Krishna is full in all opulences, and how he manifests such opulences is described herein. Also, 4 kinds of fortunate people who become attached to Krishna, and 4 kinds of unfortunate people who never take to Krishna are described in this chapter. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad-Gita, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit soul, capable of elevating himself to self-realization by different types of yoga. At the end of the 6th chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form of all yoga. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the absolute truth completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahmajyoti, or localized Paramatma, is not perfect knowledge of the absolute truth, because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. In complete Krishna consciousness, one knows that Krishna is ultimate knowledge beyond any doubts. Different types of yoga are only stepping stones on the path of Krishna consciousness. One who takes directly to Krishna consciousness automatically knows about Brahmajyoti and Paramatma in full. By practice of Krishna consciousness yoga, one can know everything in full, namely the absolute truth, the living entities, the material nature, and their manifestations with paraphernalia. One should therefore begin yoga as directed in the last verse of the 6th chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Shravanam is first and most important. The Lord therefore says to Arjuna, Tat Trinu, or hear from me. No one can be a greater authority than Krishna, and therefore by hearing from him, one receives the greatest opportunity to become a perfectly Krishna-conscious person. One has therefore to learn from Krishna directly, or from a pure devotee of Krishna, and not from a non-devotee upstart, puffed up with academic education. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this process of understanding Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is described in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto as follows. Shrinvatam svagata Krishna punya shravana kirtanaya ridi antisto riyabantrani vidanoti suritsatam nasta prayechu badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki tada rajastano bhava kama lobdayas chaye Cheta eter anavidam stitam savate prasidati evam pranasa manaso bhagavad bhakti-yoga taha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate bijate hridaya grantis chedante sarva samshayaha shriyanti chasma karmani drishtva evat manishvare. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literature, or to hear about him directly through the Bhagavad-Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, bhakti-yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samashayam samagram, understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Om Jnana Timiranya Sagana Gana Salakaya Chaksurin Miltanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutali Shrayam Rupakadamayam Tadanti Svapadantikam. I'm asking the spiritual master to enlighten me with the torchlight of knowledge. There is so much to say here that we will not be able to get to everything, but we will try to touch on a few important points here. We see, to bring us to this point, Prabhupada has summarized kind of a recap of the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad-Gita, which basically tell about what is matter, what is spirit, and who is the controller of both, what is Sankhya, how to add up, what is favorable and what is not favorable, that the living entity is different from the body. And the 6 chapters bring us to this point. And then Prabhupada gives a brief summary of what will be there in this 7th chapter. It talks about the 4 pious and the 4 impious living entities. We'll see if we can get to some of that. But before we get to some of that, we will try to unpack part of this verse. Now we look at this verse when it tells something. Like if I tell you, if you drive to Amritsar, Punjab, I will give you a rupee. The result is not so good, right? So we look at what is said here, we look, what is the result? If I say, come over here and touch this, and I will give you 100 crores of rupees, then you think, wow, the result is very good. So by unpacking this verse, we will start at the end. The result of what Krishna says when you do these things is that you can know me in full, free from doubt. So if that's the result, we can know Krishna in full, free from doubt, then maybe it's worth taking a look at what Krishna has to say here. And part of that is why this verse starts with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. How many verses in Bhagavad-Gita start with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha? 700? No, how many verses start with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha? Anybody have an idea? What? No.
But must be more than Arjuna Uvacha.
More than one and less than 1,000? You know some other verses that starts like that? Like 4:1? There's 28. 4:1 starts that way. In 2:1, when he's talking about that you're mourning for what's not worthy of lament. In 3:37, when he says that lust is the enemy of the world. And in 4:1, when he talks about when I imparted this knowledge of Vivishwan, when he says in the 10th chapter, verse 1, listen again, because I have better knowledge to tell you. So he is bringing this out to show that it's not just anyone. Like if I said, oh, the rickshaw driver told me this, or some guy in the street told me that. So he's saying Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. It's not just saying Krishna, because people might think Krishna is something different, or Vishnu. Now what does Bhagavan mean? Bhagavan means someone who is full in all opulences. All of us have these opulences in minor degree, but Krishna has them in full degree. Let's see if you know some of them. Somebody name one of them. 6 of them. Just one. What? Krishna has wealth. Wait, no, he has wealth, he has all wealth. Not just wealth, but he has all of it. And knowledge, how much knowledge does he have? More than you? You're sure? That's good. Okay. So we have wealth, we have knowledge, beauty, strength, what else? Renunciation? Fame. We all have some fame, but everyone's heard of God. Even the atheist says, I don't believe that God. They don't believe in a supreme authority because they want to be the supreme authority. So God, Bhagavan is someone who has all of these opulences. So when it's stating this, it is to give the idea that what is being said is very important. And what is being said is credible. Just like Krishna ends when he says, of all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith and worshiping me with love is the highest yogi of all. That is my opinion. If he's the Supreme Bhagavan, is his opinion pretty good opinion? What's the difference between his opinion and fact? It's not what Donald Trump would call fake news, right? We get a lot of fake news out there, right? That's not the real. But this is not fake news. This is the real news. So he is establishing this so that we will understand that this is the authority, just like when Krishna talks in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. Also, in the verse, in the 5th verse, when in the 4th he establishes it by saying that in the beginning, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, in the beginning I instructed this yoga to Vivishwan, and Vivishwan imparted it to Manu. And Manu imparted it to his son Ikshvaku. And this knowledge was imparted in disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. Then he says that, but in the course of time the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. But he tells Arjuna that I'm speaking this knowledge to you today. That very ancient science of the Supreme is today told by me to you because you're my devotee as well as my friend. And then Arjuna thinks, well, how could you have spoken this to Vivishwan when Vivishwan is senior by birth to you by, many millions of years? I think it's 120 million something. That's quite a while, isn't it? So then Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, and he says, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you could not. So he's establishing in these that he's a supreme personality of Godhead to show that what he is saying is authorized. Just like in the transcendental knowledge, when he shows that many, many births both you and I have passed, he can remember all of them. And then he says that although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So he is using this term to show that what he is saying is going to be very important. So after it's established that he's Bhagavan, unpacking this verse a little farther, the first thing he says, what is the first thing he says in this verse? Someone has a book there. What does he say? What are the first two words?
Now here.
Now here. When? When do we hear?
Now.
Now. Now, when Krishna says, now hear this, just like when we were reading in the Bhagavatam about the between the demons and the demigods. Now, right before Krishna told a very important instruction about how to deal with the demons, he said, now what I am going to say to you next is very important and you should listen clearly. When he says that, or he says, now hear, what does that tell you? What? To pay attention, yes. He's saying, now you should hear. It means you should pay attention and listen to this. This is the obvious point, that when he says, now hear this, because it means that now something is going to be said that's important that we should pay attention to. So he says that, now hear from me. This isn't the clue to now I space out and listen to something else or turn on the radio. When he says now hear, it means now hear. This is very clear-cut directions that we're getting. So this is an important thing to see, that he's saying now hear, because he's going to give us something about how to practice this yoga. And Prabhupada talks about this yoga. The word yoga means exercise, right? What does yoga mean? Does it mean connection? Does it mean sex? It does. Also, it means that. It means connection in many ways. But as Prabhupada says in some of the lectures, he says when we're talking about yoga, we're not talking about physical gymnastics. We're talking about connecting to Krishna, relinking yoga, just like a yoke. They yoke the oxen to the cart, and they're connected to that. So that's what this yoga is, to connect with Krishna. And how does he say? Practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me. This gives us the clear-cut directions on exactly how we're supposed to do this. Full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me. So just like Krishna was saying here, to pay attention, to listen, we're supposed to practice it in full consciousness. Something interesting about how the mind works. There's something in the mind called the reticular regulator. And what this does is, if you're concentrating on something, the mind says, okay, the other things can wait till later. This is why I write the things down I have to do later in the day. People say, so you can remember them? I said, no, so I can forget them. Because I don't want to be chanting thinking about them. I want to write them down so that I know when chanting is done, I can open the book and I don't have to think about it then. Because the way the mind works, that if you start thinking about something else, then the mind says, okay, the chanting isn't important, now this is. That's why when the alarm goes off or alarm goes off for a fire, he goes, wah, wah, wah. It doesn't, there's not a slight voice of a woman saying, I smell a little smoke in the air, right? It makes a noise that you have to pay attention to it because it puts it prominent in the brain. So this is how we should practice this yoga, is in full consciousness of me and having the mind attached to Krishna. And fortunately here we have a process for doing this. As Prabhupada explains, you know, in Christianity they say that you should love Jesus and you surrender Jesus, but it's hard to have much explanation of an exact process. And here Krishna talks about a couple of things. Full consciousness of me with mind attached to me. So how do we do that? We have a process that we do with these things. When it starts, just like Krishna says here, touch, renew. It starts with, there's 9 processes of devotion. Now I'll name some processes, you tell me if they're one of them. Shravanam? Kirtanam? Wait a minute, Prajalpanam? No? You're sure? Do people do it anyway? But it's not a process, it is a process, right? Okay, and what else do we have? Vishnu Smaranam, remembering Vishnu. Does that come automatically? It does from here. What else? Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, prayers. We offer prayers. Now when we pray prayers, do we make a list? It's like there was the one comedian, he must have heard this from Prabhupada, because he said that the shopkeeper is praying, please God, make sure that my shop is locked up so no thief gets inside. And the thief is praying, please God, make sure the shop is unlocked so I can get in to steal something. But what is the use of being God, he says, if you don't know what to do until someone prays to you and gives you instructions? Do we really think this is the nature of God? And God, it even says, and God is going to become confused when he's getting contradictory prayers. One person is praying to keep it locked and the other is praying to keep it unlocked. And now God becomes confused. Is that it? No, I don't think so. So when we pray to God, are we asking a list? Okay, God, I have a list. I want a better wife, more money, a bigger car, a house by the sea, and you know, I'm a little upset you didn't finish your last list. So do we think God is like this? Is this how we pray? What do we pray for? His bhakti, what else maybe? Maybe knowledge of what he wants us to do? Can we pray for certain things for ourselves? Oh yes, we can pray to have defects removed. Please remove the defects. Please remove my anarthas that are standing in the way of my usefulness to you and my ability to do service. We can do that. And we can pray for others. We can pray like that. Is there a prayer that we can say that everything will turn out exactly how we want it to? Is there? Who says no? Who says yes? You don't think yes? How would it go? What is it? Yes. Then you get your wish. You say, Krishna, today my wish is that everything will turn out exactly the way you want it to turn out. And then I get my wish. If we say, okay, Krishna, I have my desires and I'm going to force you to take them. We try that, but that doesn't work. But that it is true, we can do it. If we line our will with Krishna's and quit fighting him, we cease fighting Krishna and align our will with Krishna's, then things turn out fine. You know, I think of this sometimes. It's like now I'm about to leave Vrindavan in a couple of days and I'm getting separation anxiety. But I get to go give some lectures in Delhi. I can't even get to all the temples that are there. Then I get to visit my daughter and preach in Bali, and then I go back to South Africa where Prabhupada sent me. and then to Mayapur, and then to Laguna Beach, and I'll take Vrindavan with me. And I find the things, like when it was asked for me to go to South Africa, I thought, why me? And then I thought, well, why not me? Why couldn't I? And now I got the opportunity to be, I went there with the Swami and he left me alone, and I thought, why me getting left alone? But then I got the credit for starting it because I was there for 6 months alone. And they were trying to kill me because of different reasons. But yet Prabhupada wrote me a letter that I'm praying to Krishna that you will have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission. So even in spite of my unqualified self, if Prabhupada prays to Krishna that I'll have the strength and enthusiasm to carry out this mission, then it will come about. So these processes of devotion are not something like we put on the wall, like I'm a Hindu, or I'm a devotee, or these are the 9 processes. Sometimes people put them on the wall. It's just like I have a high school alumni of Laguna Beach, and only one person from my high school graduating class is here now. But we don't usually lecture about that, right? Because that's not the important part. The processes of devotion are more important than which high school we went to or which country we came to, because those aren't going to save us. They aren't going to engage us in love of Krishna. And to practice these also, we have, you know, here in matter and here in spirit, you know, they're 2 distinct energies. But Krishna is very merciful to us that he gives us the chance to have full consciousness of him by appearing in things that appear to be material, but actually they become spiritualized. Just like this is just metal, but by running electricity through it, it becomes electrified. Or if you put a hot iron, an iron rod in the fire and then touch it to paper, it catches it on fire because it has become heated. So in the same way, we have a few things that can help us to concentrate on Krishna that appear to be material. Can anybody think of one person? Think of one of those. What are some of the things? I have to give you hints. What are some of the things? Chanting, okay. There's another one. It begins with B and rhymes with look. What is it? Book. Oh, you got it. How about that? Okay, so we have books. Any book? Shastras. Especially ones that begin with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. So we have Shastras, and we have the holy names. What else do we have? Which one? Deities in the temple. Archa Vigraha. That appears to be made out of stone, but actually it's spiritual. And one good thing to do with these is whatever we do first is the most important thing. Do we wake up and go out to the bar and get drunk, and then think about doing some work, and then think about being Krishna conscious? Or do we put Krishna first, and then all good things follow? First thing we go to see is who? First we see Chaitanya and Nityananda, then Krishna Balaram, and then we rush over to Radha and Shyamasundar. So we get the deities, the holy names, we have the Shastras. Is there something else?
Holy Dham.
The Holy Dham. Did we all go to one today? Yes. Now what if we can't be in Vrindavan? What about when I have to go to Delhi in South Africa? Should I not go? But especially everywhere I go, people tell me I shouldn't leave. But I guess it's better in South Africa than the white apartheid government. First, they wanted to throw me off the roof, and then they wanted to throw me in a jail, and then they wanted to throw me out of the country. So considering that, it was better they wanted rid of me than wanting to keep me. How do we reconcile that? How can I go to Delhi and leave Vrindavan behind?
You create Vrindavan in Delhi.
Yes. And if I get to preach there, I can remind other people about Vrindavan. And the same with South Africa. There they told me I have to come back because Prabhupada sent me there and says they're all doing my service there. And Laguna Beach is my hometown. I bring all the local people to the temple, and we had a big Janmashtami where we got many local people to come. We celebrated our 50 years of being there. So I kind of have to incorporate it all. So which should I do? Stay in Vrindavan? Preach in Laguna? Go to Mayapur or go to South Africa? Which one? Which one? I have to go to all of it. It all has to fit in somewhere. But all of it fits in here under the pretext of this verse where we are practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me. Now, one of the things that we saw in the lectures is Prabhupada says that it begins from Shraddha. With a little Shraddha, it automatically turns into more development of attachment. And as Prabhupada says, that, you know, Krishna is so kind that he comes to explain to us who he is. And it says in here, we're talking about the books, to hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear about him directly through Bhagavad-Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna dwelling within everyone's heart acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages of hearing of him. I say to people, what color should Prabhupada's books be? They should be red. They should be read by everyone. You know, sometimes if we spend more time, eventually we study them and try to get a lot out. But in the beginning, if someone just picks up a Gita or a Krishna book, at least start just by reading, doing something. It can always improve, because this is the idea that we're trying to do. As I said, we don't put it up on the wall like a member of some club or the alumni of a high school or a college. That we try to improve our Krishna consciousness. And as Prabhupada says, we're all attached to something, isn't it? Attachment comes. Anybody not attached to something? So what Prabhupada says is that what we should do is, should we have attachment to Krishna? But what he particularly goes into in many of his lectures is that we should be increasing our attachment to Krishna. Now, when things are good, is that a good time to increase our attachment to Krishna? Yes, because I'm happy, joyous, and free in Krishna. I can have gratitude for you, and I can love you, and I can serve you. When things get difficult, is that a good time to increase our attachment to Krishna? I'll tell you, I was in South Africa in '72, and 5 thieves came in the door. We were staying at Junibai Patel's house in South Africa, and this was a great opportunity to increase my attachment to Krishna, because we got letters from people in Nairobi to go to South Africa. But there was no relations between Kenya and South Africa because of the racial difference. South Africa was a white government, and they discriminated against blacks and Indians, and no mail went both ways. So we had letters to meet people, but none of these people knew we were coming, and we had to go undercover. And so we went to Chunibai Patel's house, and he was a vegetable merchant. He would sell the vegetables from the farms to the market, come home, count the money, then take it to the bank. So one day, 5 thieves came in, 4 guns, and 1 with a crowbar to pry things open. So the one with the gun put the gun at my head and said, "Get under the bed." And the one with the crowbar says, as I'm under the bed, the gun is at my head. The one with the crowbar says, "Shoot him." And the one with the gun says, "No, we don't need to kill anyone." And the one with the crowbar says, "Yes, we need no witnesses, just shoot him now." And I said, "No, we don't need to." They are arguing. I said, "Krishna, this is it, isn't it?" Now, did this give me a good opportunity to increase my attachment to Krishna? I thought, if this is going to be the last round, I better chant it attentively. Because I could think, well, I can do better tomorrow, but it looks like there isn't going to be a tomorrow. So, you know, quite often the things come, and we take of them that, you know, why is Krishna putting it this way? But then Krishna lets us know at the last minute. I was thinking of my arrangements and trying to get something in Mayapur, and they kept shuffling me to different places, and then they said, well, they'll put the Prabhupada disciples in the Vamsi Bhavan, would you share with someone? And I'm thinking, well, the Sodian building is better, but then I'm thinking, no, but if Krishna wants me in the Vamsi Bhavan and I get to share with someone, I may get wonderful association with someone. And we have to remember here, like, what the main point is, like what is our primary purpose, like when we're dealing with people. Like Mukunda Datta was saying in the lecture today, sometimes people were arguing over which political camp. But we have to remember that our primary purpose is to engage ourselves and others in Krishna consciousness. So the details are different. Whether they support the other political party than you do, or whether they support the right or wrong one, if our purpose is to engage ourselves and them in Krishna consciousness, we should concentrate on them and not worry about that detail. Whether I get in the best building or not in the best building, whether I get to be alone or not to be alone, if Krishna is arranging something, as we said before, that how will I get my will? To decide that whatever Krishna is arranging must be the best possible arrangement for me. We think things are supposed to revolve around us, and therefore we see all kinds of mistakes in the world, right? Because things were supposed to revolve around me, and it's not working that way. So these must be mistakes, correct? The mistake is my perception. We have such a disease of perception. We have a misperception of how things are. There aren't mistakes in Krishna's world. The mistakes are that we are forgetting to align ourselves with the way things are. And it's much easier to accept things the way they are than accept things the way they're not, because then we're out of touch with reality. So if I'm thinking Krishna, let me just think how I can surrender to you. That is a better platform for me to think on this verse. How can I execute yoga in full consciousness of Krishna and have my mind attached to Krishna? Because I'm going to be attached to something. And it's not a stagnant idea. How can I increase my attachment to Krishna? And we can use that in both places. When I get settled here or I get settled in Laguna, every time I go back I rent a different place, because I say it's so expensive there that the cost of a place in Laguna is the same as buying a place here. 1 year's rent in Laguna is the same money as buying the same place here. So I only rent a small place when I'm there. So each time I have to depend on Krishna to get a different place. But it always works out exactly nice, and it's within 1 kilometer of the temple. And so if I just put it in Krishna's hands, and instead of worrying about the details, I become attached to Krishna. So when any persons, places, or things are bothering me, what I do is I write it down on a piece of paper, and I have my altar with pictures of deities, Radhashyamashundar, Radhamadhava, Lord Nrsingadev, and Panchatattva in Mayapur and Laguna Beach, and I put it to Krishna. I say, Krishna, this thing is bothering me. I'm giving it to you. Now just let me surrender to you, and you do the best that you can with it. Because our real business is doing as this verse says, to practice yoga in the full consciousness of me. And if I'm worried about all these different details that Krishna can work out, it's amazing we worry about these little details. But the earth is like 93 million miles, which is about what, 150 million kilometers from the sun, right? Now what if it was only 100 million kilometers from the sun, or 200 million kilometers from the sun? Which one of those would be a big deal? Which one? Right now it's 150 kilometers from the sun. Now what if it was only 100 or if it was 200? Which one of those would be a problem?
What?
Both. But that's a big deal, right? But do we worry about it? But that is a bigger deal to have the planet in just the right place than all these little details we're thinking about. But somehow we have faith in Krishna that he will make that happen. Sometimes it's the perception that we miss the big picture, but we think the small picture is a problem, or it can't happen on its own. Isaac Newton, who discovered the idea of gravity, that his friend was an atheist, and he said, I think that the whole universe just came by chance. And he says, no, God created it. No, it came just by chance. So Isaac Newton made a model of the planets and the sun, and with a bicycle you'd pedal it and the planets would all go around the sun, and he left it in the man's living room. And the man said, where did this come from? He says, oh, it just came by chance. And he says, how could that come by chance? He said, well, if this is a model of the universe, if you don't believe it came by chance, how do you believe that the real thing came by chance? Right? It's like if I make a model car and I say, oh, this one came by chance. If you don't believe that, but you believe that all the Marutis and the other cars came by chance, how can that be? If the model can't come by chance, how can the real thing come by chance? So the idea here with this is, as Prabhupada's saying in this, is that Krishna consciousness is not an event, it's a process. That we try to increase our attachment to Krishna. And we decrease our attachment to material things. And we do pray to Krishna to remove the things that make it difficult for us. And Krishna can help us. He's capable of that. It seems that it's not so much how big the problem is, but how willing we are to turn it over to Krishna. Sometimes people have great big problems, but they surrender to Krishna and they get through them. And other people have little problems, but they think, I can handle it on my own, and they don't survive them because the same thing applies. Either way, it's too big for us. Whether we think it's a small problem or a big problem, either way, it's too big for us. And if we surrender to Krishna as our first option, we think, okay, some changes are going to come now. Like when I leave Vrindavan, it always feels funny, but when I go to the temples in Delhi, they're so happy to have someone come. And then I'll get to see my daughter in Bali, and we have wonderful temples there, and I will take Vrindavan with me and share it for the people there. And then when I get back, I will come to appreciate it. Because before I lived in Laguna Beach, and then I came to Vrindavan, I thought I was only going to stay here. But then they wanted me to come to South Africa, and Laguna wanted me to come back. And now I make a balanced program and see what Krishna has in store next. So our business is to do these things here. As Krishna says, to recap in this verse, hear from me. We hear his holy name, we hear his instructions. They're available in books. I used to hear Prabhupada translating the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the next room while I was getting ready to do Mangal Artik in Mumbai, and I would hear bits and pieces. Now I can read the whole thing because it's available. And so I can hear those instructions and remember these things. Practice in full consciousness of Krishna, and not just be attached to Krishna, but try to increase that attachment to Krishna. Asamas sayam samagram mam. So that should be our goal in this. Hear from Krishna, practice in full consciousness, and increase our attachment to Krishna. So I will try to live by these when I'm somewhere else, and you try to live by them here, and that will make us together. So are there any questions, comments, or corrections? Sometimes I say some wrong things just to see if anybody caught it. Yes? Yes? Like the trick questions. So any comment? Is that Dinanath back there? Yes? You have some comment on this? No comment? Someone must have some comment on this.
I like that you say that Krishna consciousness, it's not an event, it's a process.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we have to remember. Things like, I got initiated. Oh, okay, I'm done. It's something we do every day because it's, we do every day. It's a process. We keep doing it. And we don't just have an attachment, we increase it. It's a process. We keep doing it. Sometimes I think, well, I already did that. I did that last week. It's a continuous process. Yes?
Well, I have experience. Just now we discussed about, you said I had to go to South Africa, I had to go to Laguna Beach, I had to be in Vrindavan, or you said, right?
Yes.
All one. Same like that. If we, even not outside, even our ISKCON society, because if we go to different place, even some friendly invitation will be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my place. If they call me, known friend who is in Vrindavan,
Yes.
speak about Krishna, they go there.
Yes.
There is some negative impact is there. Oh, you are coming to my zone, why you reach here, something like that. How to?
Well, like you said, it's good to. What I try to do too is one, they want me to come to Laguna, and they want me to come back to South Africa, But rather than take over everything, I try to add a little bit. You know, I try to help with some contributions in Laguna because it struggles. It's an expensive town. We don't have brahmacharis there or own any other properties besides the temple. And they want me to come and preach in South Africa. And Braj Vilas wants me to help him with the TOVP in Mayapur. So generally I'm going places that want me to go. And instead of trying to take over, I try to add something to where I can help there. Because I remember Radhanath Swami was once giving a lecture and he said, how should we deal with people? He said, well, the first premise should be, how can I be helpful? So, you know, we go to somewhere to think, oh, well, can I come to there and help you out in what you're doing? Because you're not going to go there and take it over. People get the wrong idea. They think when Laguna is doing well, and then Laguna established an ashram in Long Beach, some people came along and says, oh, why don't we come and take this over? But it's already being run nicely. Why don't they go to one of the places that's struggling and try to help out there? So, you know, we don't want to be trying to conflict with others. We want to see if we can add something by coming there. You know, generally there's places that you can go that they'll be happy to have you come in. But what preaching would you do there that's like in their zone? Don't you usually go and work with the temple, or do you just go and set up a program and they don't know about it?
House program. Some my mother's friends came to my house.
Oh.
They invite me, okay, come and
Oh.
like this. I went there.
Oh.
Only the person coming from the temple.
Yes.
Were you coming here? Were you please here? I had friendly invitation, so I came there. I thought, in this way, how can I?
Well, quite often the things you'd inform the people ahead of time. Oh, I'm coming, my mother, would you like to come by and see what we're doing? You know, we have to try to cooperate, which means and work together. Let them see if, you know, some of my mother's friends are coming, I'd like you to introduce to them, right? You know, you try to put the different people together. You know, let them know ahead of time that you're coming and invite them to come also. You know, work in a way that you can accomplish several things at once. That you can introduce your friends to the temple, and you can introduce the temple to your mother's friends, and, you know, put it all together in a package. Let them know, oh, I'm coming to do this. I'd really like for you to come by, or send someone from the temple to meet with my relatives there. You know, let them know ahead of time. See if they can get some advantage out of it too. The idea is we're trying to help each other out, not try to. I don't get in a car in Delhi and just drive around to places to. They drive me around and they want me to come there, you know. So we have to try to add to what they're doing instead of trying to take over. And let them know ahead of time that you're coming in. See what you can do to help them out. And then Krishna works it all out. It feels funny to leave Vrindavan.
Our side people no problem. Our own ISKCON devotees only.
Yes. Yes. Well, you just let them know ahead of time. Tell them you're doing a program at your mother's house and you'd like them to come also. Maybe it feels funny that it's going on, then they don't know, so let them know ahead of time. Sometimes you let people know something ahead of time, it's easier than finding out, oh, how come there was a program and other devotees from the temple are going, but I didn't hear about it. So you let them know first. Maybe they wonder why other people were invited and they weren't, and yet they're in charge of the temple. So better just to let them know that you're doing it and ask them to come by also. Does that sound good?
It's not a preaching, it's a personal invitation. Personal invitation.
Yes.
So I went there. So we talked something.
Yes. Well, tell them that and ask them to come also. That's all. Let it be an advantage for everybody. Some other question or comment? Or let people know ahead of time. It's always a lot easier. That's how we cooperate. So Krishna consciousness is an event or a process? It's a process. So they call it the process of Krishna consciousness.
Unending process.
So what?
Krishna consciousness, unending process.
Yes. Anything else? No question on this? All right. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.